What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks, presented by Zaxby's. DJ Bucky Rhett back with you. Boys, it was an interesting weekend of football, and I think we could do an entire takeaway podcast solely on the quarterback position.
Yeah, like DJ, each and every week we see these quarterbacks take these quantum leaps, sometimes because of the play caller, but also we've seen the regression of some of the quarterbacks that we thought would be stars in this league.
And how about the fantastic finishes we had in the early window in particular? You had 5 games coming down to the final possession. You had a 6th go down to an onside kick. There was a lot of fun to be had in this Week 13.
Yeah, a wild week, Rhett. Why don't you kick us off with the first of 10 takeaways? What do you got?
Oh, boy. 0 blitz, 0 wins still.
And they've got it off. Here comes Carr. Steps back. Now he comes up, going to fire again. Left side. Going for Ruggs. Ruggs has got it. Touchdown. Jackpot, baby. Vegas touchdown. Vegas touchdown. Jackpot. And away.
Wow. Well, you wanted to get the ball to Ruggs. You say get the ball to Ruggs, Brett. There you go.
So, to be fair, we often criticize defensive coordinators and head coaches for changing up their game plan late in the game, going into that prevent defense and allowing teams to march down the field. And you wonder why get rid of something that you've been doing all game that's worked. This was not that. Okay, to illustrate how unprecedented this was, let me just tell you that since 2006, there have been 379 plays in the final 20 seconds of the fourth quarter where the offense was trailing by 4 to 8 points. Only 9 times has a defense blitzed 5 or more rushers, so like 1 extra rusher. The Jets sent 8, leaving Lamar Jackson, an undrafted rookie free agent, one-on-one with the first wide receiver taken in this last year's draft and arguably the fastest player in football, and they paid for it dearly. And as unfortunate as it always is when there is coaching turnover, Gregg Williams paid for it with his job. He has been fired as the defensive coordinator for the Jets. And on it goes. The Jets felt like they could taste their first win after that 4th down stop. And then, of course, the Raiders figure it out. But this was unbelievable to see that kind of call late. And according to Mike Silver, who told us about it on Game Day Final last night, the Raiders expected it because of Gregg Williams' ego, his reputation, wanting to come after the quarterback and win with a play like that rather than not lose. So it came back to bite him this time.
It did come back to bite him. And here's the thing, and I won't give Gregg Williams a pass on the call, but I can understand why he might have been spooked enough to dial up a pressure. The play before, they're playing a soft zone, and Nelson Aguilar runs by the back end of the defense and is wide open. Derek Carr just misses him. The next play, Gregg Williams decides, no, we're going to heat him up. We're not going to give him that kind of time. I think the bad thing about this is really the lack of execution. Not only from Lamar Jackson, because he's a rookie. Sometimes you just have to understand the situation, keep the ball in front, don't go for the double moves and the like. But when you dial up a cover 0 blitz, you can't have the linebacker just kind of hanging around the box and not blitzing. Because when you expose your corners like that, they're counting on the pressure to make the ball come out quick. And so I would say it wasn't a great call, but the execution or lack thereof also needs to be talked about.
Yeah, I mean, the confusing part about that is I thought there was a chance he might have been checking to see if the back or the tight end was going to release. You know, you don't want to get caught naked and they just dump the ball down to a back or a tight end. You've got nobody for him. So I thought that's why there was some hesitancy. I don't know if it was the linebacker or the safety who was the one dropped down there who just kind of hung and didn't end up coming. But you can't make that call. I know what you're saying, Buck, about that ball to Aguilar, but that's, you know, if you need to get your guys together and say, hey, just keep it in front, man. Just play with depth, keep it in front. I always like if you want to play 2-man or whatever and just park those safeties in the parking lot, then go that route. But man, it's not only that coverage, but then Rhett touched on it, the individual matchup. You've got an undrafted rookie free agent out there who takes the cheese, as we like to say, on the double move, which is
unbelievable.
You'd hope he'd have better instincts than that, but know who you're playing with.
Right.
It's Lamar Jackson, undrafted free agent, who you're just trying to piecemeal a game together, and you've got him out there on an island with Henry Ruggs. It just, yeah, you don't want to see somebody lose their job, but I wasn't necessarily surprised to see that happened. All right, let's keep us moving here. Let's go to the second takeaway. Let's go to the Chiefs in that big Sunday night win. Coffee's for closers.
Blocked, feet staggered, left hash, takes the snap at his left knee. She's trying to get pressure. Pass is going to be intercepted this time. And the Honey Badger gets his second of the game. Tyrann Mathieu, his second pick in the game, and his fifth of the season. You can't trick the Honey Badger late in the game, and the Kansas City Chiefs get the huge, big turnover to close the game again.
I was just thinking about the ability to close games for the Kansas City Chiefs. And when you look at the elements you need to be a good closer in the NFL, you've got to have, let's say you're behind, right? You're chasing. You got to close out a game. You got to finish. You've got an electric quarterback who can make plays, and you've got a money kicker who's good from 58, 60 yards. He's automatic in Butker. So you've got that from an offensive standpoint. Chasing points, you've got guys that can help you close games and finish that way. And then you look at defensively to have a pass rush, and you see it with Chris Jones and his ability to create pressure on the interior, his ability. And then you heard Tyrann Mathieu there with a pick to be able to close games out with playmakers on the back end. I think they have the best closing combination in the NFL. And Buck, the last thing I would add here is what an advantage in a 4-minute offense. We just got done talking about the Jets. If the Jets could have got another first down, they wouldn't have given the ball back to the Raiders for them to go down and finish that game. Well, they ran the ball because you want to eat clock, you run the ball and punt. Well, when you've got Patrick Mahomes, you don't have to just run the ball. You can trust him in the fact that you can get him on the move a little bit. If he's got a completion, he'll take it. It'll keep the clock moving. If not, he'll get down and keep the clock moving. But they give themselves more opportunities to eat clock and to close games from that standpoint because you can trust your quarterback to not just turn around and hand the ball off. You can actually let him throw the football in a 4-minute offense. It is an advantage they have over the rest of the league that, to me, I don't think it's talked about a lot.
No, it's not talked about a lot. And I think the Patrick Mahomes factor, we always talk about his talent and how he's just a generational talent at the position. But I think we need to talk more about his mind, his intelligence, his instincts, his awareness, because you're right, DJ. Third in the game on the line, you need it's a got-to-have-it moment. They put the ball in the hands of their best player, and they trust him to make the right decision. And so it just speaks volumes about who he is. I also believe on tomorrow's podcast, we might need to talk more about that closer and that closing combination because that's an interesting little combination that you came up with: quarterback, kicker, pass rusher, and playmaker in the secondary. I like that. We need to explore that.
Yeah, but guys, we're burying the lead here with this game because for the first time in known football history, a wide receiver actually thought he didn't catch a touchdown pass on a questionable call. Tyreek Hill, I mean, the ball never hit the ground on that would-be touchdown from Patrick Mahomes, sliding in the end zone, pops out of his hands, and then it never hits the ground. He catches it again, and he was just like, no, I guess, all right, incomplete, fine. I didn't catch it. I mean, I've never seen it before. Even if it's a blatantly obvious drop where it hits the ground, the wide receiver's popping up, calling for the challenge. Andy Reid's like, all right, I guess he didn't catch it. They didn't make a case for it. And they left 6 points on the board. That was unbelievable. But I also thought this part was interesting, too, because for a contender, you're talking about the ability to close, and I think that's really important. I thought the quote from Patrick Mahomes afterwards was actually really interesting. Talking about this team being battle-tested, understanding they've played in a lot of tight football games, especially this season here, and they found ways to win. Every single team is going to bring their best shot, he said, and I think our guys did a great job of battling today and finding a way, which, you know, I guess for a team like that, with that kind of explosive ability, you don't think about them in these kind of dogfight type of games with a lesser opponent, right? But I feel like this just further builds their resume as a championship contender because they're showing us the different ways that they can win and will win and have the ability to win down the stretch. And I think it only serves them well, even if it wasn't as impressive a victory as we normally see from Kansas City.
I just think about having a sparring partner. To me, when you have a sparring partner and you get yourself into the deep rounds, how many times have you seen in boxing or in MMA where you see guys that are dominant fighters, but they usually handle their business in the first or second round, and all of a sudden they get taken out into the deep water, and they don't know how to handle themselves. Yeah, they get themselves in trouble. And to me, I think this Chiefs team now has had a chance to play in those later rounds, and I think that's going to help them as they go forward. Buck, what's your first takeaway?
My first takeaway: Baker serves up the Titans.
Mayfield from under center, play action fake, bootlegs it out to the right, he's throwing down the right sideline, he's got Peoples-Jones wide open, he's gone, 20, 10, 5, touchdown! 75 yards on one play!
This was by far Baker Mayfield's best performance with the Cleveland Browns. It was a high-stakes contest. There was pressure on him to deliver. Everyone was looking at this contest to see, is Baker good enough to help the Browns not only get in the playoffs, but can they do some noise? He responded in splendid fashion. 4 touchdowns, had 300-yard game. And what I liked about him is he was in attack mode from the jump. He was accurate. He was efficient. He was really good with his decision making in terms of making sure that he kept the ball out of harm's way, and it really enabled the Browns to jump on the Tennessee Titans. Later on, they were able to get the running game going and do all that other stuff, and they did have to kind of hold on for dear life, but a very impressive first half. And if this is the version of Baker that we see from the Browns down the stretch and in the postseason, this is a team that teams do not want to face.
Baker Mayfield summoning the ghost of Otto Graham with 4 first-half passing touchdowns, tying Graham's franchise record. Then they come down to the final minute after the Baker touchdown pass number 4, and Nick Chubb gets in it. They scored 38 points in the first half. You think they were ready to play this game? You think they were ready to prove that they belonged on this stage with a team like the Titans to be considered among the real contenders here in the AFC? On the flip side for Tennessee, did Derrick Henry just look a little sluggish to you guys in this game?
Well, that's kind of always how he looks. He just needs a little bit of a runway, and Cleveland didn't give him one.
There you go. Got a little penetration in the backfield. We saw that on the turnover. Henry's first fumble in his last 357 touches or something. Sheldon Richardson got in there and forced that fumble, and that's when things kind of started to snowball for him in the first half.
I want to go to the 3 Ps because, Bucky, we've been talking about this forever on the podcast. We talk about the quarterbacks. The best way to help a young quarterback grow is the play caller, playmakers, and protection. I don't think anybody's ever doubted that Cleveland, throughout Baker's time there, has had some playmakers. When you look at what he's had at receiver, you look at who he's had in the backfield, he's had playmakers. But when you look at protection and play caller, they made massive upgrades with investments in free agency in the draft for the offensive line and then bringing in Kevin Stefanski to run this offense. They are so much better in that department. Let me give you an example of it, because I'm watching this game and I'm sitting here going, man, Baker's dealing, but he is just operating from such a clean pocket. And so you pull the next gen stats, he was pressured on 1 of 33 dropbacks. That's 3%. That's the lowest pressure rate for Mayfield in a game in his career. So going up against this Tennessee Titans group, they couldn't even get near him. Baker Mayfield this year, when he's been protected, when he hasn't been under pressure, 21 touchdowns, 4 picks, a 111.9 passer rating. It's amazing what happens as a quarterback when you have your playmakers, but now all of a sudden you upgrade your protection and you get a play caller on top of that. That's the formula for success.
Great formula. Great stat. That's a great nugget. DJ, you're right. He was so well protected that the game was very, very easy for him. And it's one of the things that we talked about, the running game and the offensive line and how those things are a young quarterback's best friend. We're just seeing how the complementary approach that they're doing under Kevin Stefanski has really enabled Baker Mayfield to really play at a high level.
All right, guys, I'll get us to our 4th takeaway here of the day, and that is the Bears turn down a win with a turnover.
Bears from their own 17. Montgomery to his right. Trubisky's got it back. Looks. Trubisky hit. Knocked the ball free on the ground. The ball is free. The Lions say they've got it at the bottom of the pile, and they do inside the 10-yard line. John Panacini at the bottom with the football. They've got it back. Here they come.
Well, the struggles, the losing streak, it all continues for the Chicago Bears. Despite the fact that their offense actually played a little bit better in this game, they got a performance on the ground from David Montgomery. I think they scored 3 rushing touchdowns in this game. It felt better, but still, you never felt like, one, that there's any real confidence that Mitchell Trubisky is going to get the job done consistently here for this team, consistently enough to win, and then at a steady clip. And then it's just, this is a team that just, it feels like they lack the necessary kind of belief in themselves to figure this thing out. And it's their 6th straight loss, proving that 5-1 start was merely a mirage this season. I think we all kind of felt like it. Now Nagy's getting the job security questions. 2 years after they won the North and got bounced from the playoffs on the double doink? This has gone downhill in a hurry here in Chicago, and it feels like they're getting past the point of no return. Like, how are they going to fix it? Like, we're kind of getting past those questions here. It feels like a total reboot at the quarterback position. They just wiped the entire slate clean with Trubisky, Foles gone, and you wonder if that's where it's all going to stop in Chicago postseason.
Yeah, Red, it's unfortunate. This is a very, very tenuous situation. Matt Nagy is squarely on the hot seat, but I think Ryan Pace certainly is also there. I would never advocate for anybody to lose a job, but I think from a cultural standpoint, there is something wrong in Chicago. But I want to spin this to the Detroit Lions. Darrell Bevell being elevated to the interim head coach position. In his first presser, he talked about how I want our team to understand that you can work hard and have fun. And I just wonder, without talking to anybody in the building, I wonder how much of the Seahawks stuff did he bring to the Lions during that week of practice in terms of upping the energy, adding music, allowing it to be a little fun and a little more competitive. They certainly worked hard under Matt Patricia, but it seemed like it was more of a doom and gloom approach. I wonder if the energy, the infusion of energy from Darrell Bevell from his experiences in Seattle certainly made it a more enjoyable experience. And now that they've won a game, will they buy into what he's saying the rest of the way?
I would have lost a lot of money if you'd have told me that the takeaway on this was going to be this game with Detroit and Chicago, and Rhett would have taken the Chicago side of it instead of taking this time to really rejoice and celebrate one of the fine moments of the Detroit Lions season. I would have lost all the money I had if I was betting on that one.
Yeah, well, look, I bet with family loyalty, and like, hey, fact remains we're no longer associated with the Detroit Lions. So there you go. But I will say that if you tune into the aftermath today, Bucky, you're going to find out what the feeling was like inside the Lions building all week and leading up to this game and during the game from both the coach and player perspective on just how different that atmosphere was. It was quite clear. Mike Silver talked to some of the folks in that organization, and I think has to be expected. You're going to get a pretty vivid change in how things were done with Darrell Bevell leading the way after Matt Patricia was fired. But I think that was a pretty interesting response. By the way, the Lions are only a game out of the final wild card spot in the NFC.
How about that? Unbelievable, man.
Right?
They're not dead yet.
They're not dead yet. Even close.
All right, I'll keep it moving. Yeah. We won't go from the NFC over to the AFC, and this time, Tua time, take 2.
Second down and goal here. Gaskin, the running back, Smythe in motion. Pulls it back, throws it, end zone. Gesicki, touchdown. When in doubt, throw it to Mike Gesicki in the end zone.
Yeah, that was quite a connection there in this one with Tua and Mike Gesicki. And I think there is a little bit of an advantage. We've seen this in some previous years where a young quarterback gets a chance to get out there and play for a little bit. He's seen some things. Now you get to take a step back and you're out for a little bit to be able to see the game. Okay, now that I've been on the field, let me look at it through that set of eyes when I'm watching on the sideline and then studying the tape and then get reinserted back into the lineup. And I thought a nice course correction. I know, look, this is the Bengals coming off of a performance against Denver where Tua had struggled. I know the level of opponent here, but I thought what you saw was a very decisive Tua after all those sacks he took in that Denver game. He got the ball out quicker than anybody else in the NFL this week, 2.38. Or actually, sorry, second fast. I think Rivers got it out just a hair quicker. But touch to throw, he was getting the ball out of his hands. That's the way he plays. I've always said he's like a poker dealer, right? A card dealer. Just spread that ball around, get to your back foot and get the ball out. And I thought that's the way that Tua played in this game. Very decisive, very accurate underneath. They were terrible on third down, 1 of 10 on third down, but still found a way to get through on this game. And I felt good watching Tua coming off some adversity that he'd had previously, Buck.
Yeah, DJ, and this game did not start out well for Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins, and I thought it was really important that he not only hung in there, but he came back and responded in a nice way. This is a young quarterback who's still trying to figure it out. He doesn't have a bunch of starts under his belt, and so you talk about wanting to see how does he adapt and adjust to the way defenses play against him, and I thought he did it really, really well. I also thought Chan Gailey did a great job of doing as what you pointed out. Get the ball out of his hands. Quick rhythm passes. Let him deal first, second read, ball gets out. We saw this offense develop a bit of a rhythm. And so I'm excited about the Dolphins going forward because they are squarely in the mix to win the division.
By the way, did you guys see the ruckus that unfolded in this game on a pair of
crazy
special teams plays? Mike Thomas, one of the gunners for the Bengals, ends up, I mean, just with two absolutely slobber knocker type of hits on Jakeem Grant. Both of them end up drawing flags. One of them, the last one, for a kick catch interference, not even giving him any shot. Like 2 yards before the ball arrived, he leveled Jakeem Grant. And let me tell you this, that Brian Flores was having none of it. I mean, he marched right onto the field. And if you go 1 through 32 in head coach intimidation rankings, Brian Flores is up there at the top. I do not want to be in that dude's crosshairs as he's coming across the field with a bone to pick. And I think the Dolphins kind of respond to him. I think it's kind of cool. I think the defense kind of plays in his image here a little bit, and they're a fun team to watch.
Keep us going here, Buck. What you got?
The Saints are peaking at the right time.
Sets back under center. Two tight ends set. Traquan Smith motions left to right. Taysom drops back. Looks to throw. Steps up. Delivers wide open. Traquan Smith. Touchdown, Saints. Nobody home. Traquan Smith from the left side of the end zone. And the New Orleans Saints score a touchdown here early.
You know, I'm going to say something, and I know this is blasphemous down there in the Bayou, but I'm beginning to think that the New Orleans Saints may be a more dangerous playoff team with Taysom Hill at quarterback.
Oh, here we go.
And
Spicy.
I know that sounds crazy
Spicy.
based on what Drew Brees has accomplished in this league. But I'm looking at this team, and this team is difficult to defend with Taysom Hill. And I will say I am slow to get on the Taysom Hill bandwagon. But what I'm going to say is he had 232 passing yards. He had 83 rushing yards. I look at the Saints, they ran for over 200 rushing yards. And when you think about the most dangerous teams in the league, they're the ones that can change their styles in the middle of games. And I know Sean Payton is having a lot of fun with Taysom Hill, but at some point he may have to make a hard decision and say, maybe, just maybe, we should roll with Taysom Hill.
You know, it's an interesting question because clearly, you know, you go back to last season and Teddy Bridgewater jumps in and goes undefeated when Drew Brees was injured with that thumb issue. Now you come in and Taysom Hill, 3-0 as the Saints starter filling in for Drew Brees. And I get it's a different style that they're kind of playing, obviously, due to Taysom's skill set. But, yeah, look, I think the numbers kind of make you wonder. You go, But in the end, if Drew Brees is healthy, I don't think there's any way that they can keep his command of what the Saints want to do, you know, his ability to move this offense efficiently. I just don't think that we're in a Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady situation right now, even though the interesting part of it is that Michael Thomas has had by far his best games with Taysom Hill at quarterback here, Deej.
Well, I'll just put a bow on that because you talk about should it be Drew Brees, should it be Taysom Hill. There's the old phrase, right? Best of both worlds, have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah,
they play with both of them. They've done that. They've done that. To me, I think what you could see is where we saw, you know, Taysom Hill being kind of a little sprinkled in, maybe it's a little bit more than that going forward. Maybe it becomes more of a 50-50 type split. But Drew Brees has already proven he can function when he's coming in and out of the lineup with Taysom Hill coming in. So maybe that's the answer. Maybe you end up with both those guys in the postseason. Not a bad option.
All right, let's keep the takeaways rolling here. Takeaway number 7, the Eagles are hurting.
Let's see what they do here. You know the throwing. Do they go down the middle? Hurts is rolling. He's looking. He puts it in the air. Touchdown, Gregg Ward. What a throw and what a catch.
What a great throw.
Will Jalen ease the pain is the question here for the Eagles. Look, Jalen Hurts with his most extensive playing time of his young career here against the Packers in the second half of this Eagles loss. Will his stint now at quarterback for Philly be an extended stay? Doug Peterson non-committal as of his news conference today with the assorted Philly, the assembled Philly media. And, you know, I get it. I get why they put him in the second half. Things were clearly not going well as they have for much of the season for both Carson Wentz and that entire offense with him at the helm. So they put Jalen Hurts in for a whole series, and they keep him in from the second possession of the second half on. They end up punting on his first possession. They come back, and they're facing a 4th and 18 in Packers territory, and here comes the spark. He gets free from pressure on the run. Perfect ball to Gregg Ward Jr. for his first career touchdown on a 4th and long. All right, so now you're starting to feel a little bit. Defense comes out. They make a stop on the Packers next time out, force the Packers punt. Jalen Reagor proceeds to return that punt for a touchdown, and you're like, oh boy, here we go. It's like the Tua effect, right? Every other phase of the game starts stepping up once you put your rookie quarterback in there and kind of lifting the team's spirits collectively. But then the luster started to wear off. Another couple of punts. His final pass ends up being picked off. Aaron Jones has a 70-yard run to end things, and now we're kind of like back to where we started. Hurts finishes 5 of 12, over 100 yards, touchdown and a pick. You know, ends up being not a whole lot better than Wentz on the day. He did run and scramble for a couple of first downs early in the second half as well. I don't know. So, like, I get why you would make the change here, right? I mean, like, what do you have to lose if you're Doug Peterson, if you're this offense with Jalen Hurts in there? I just don't know. Like, is Jalen Hurts that much better of a runner than Carson Wentz to where we think that that's really going to lift this offense? Or do we really feel like at this point in his career he has a better command and can make things happen in the passing game? I don't know. I get the feeling, right, that they must have to make the switch now. It's just I don't know. I don't know if it's really going to provide that long-term fuel for this team.
You know, Red, because I think this is a very difficult situation for Doug Peterson. Because I think when you're the head coach, what you try and do is you try and do everything possible to avoid having to pull the plug on the franchise quarterback. And so when I look at what the Eagles have done this year, he gave up play calling, let Press Taylor call some of the plays. They've changed some of the pieces around him on the perimeter with Alshon Jeffrey coming back, Jalen Reagor getting back into the lineup. So you're hoping maybe the upgrade in personnel would do something. You've changed the tempo. Hey, let's go no huddle. Let's put it in his hands. Let's run it up and down the field. And you still haven't got the results. At some point when you're Doug Peterson, you run the risk of losing your credibility in front of the rest of the locker room if you don't at least pull him out for a little bit. And I think this actually could be good for Carson Wentz in the short term because now you've been removed. It gives you a chance to refocus, recharge, reset, and then come back. I don't think this is a long-term deal. I think it's something that Doug Peterson had to do to kind of salvage his reputation in the locker room. But now he has to map out what's the best way for us to go forward. I think the best way is going to be put Carson Wentz back in the lineup and try and figure out if you can change some other stuff to get him going. But I think in that moment in Green Bay, he had to make the move. He didn't really have a choice.
All right, I think there's a lot of layers to this, so I'm going to take a minute here and just give you a couple different things. I want to get both your guys' thoughts on this, feedback-wise. But I think with Carson Wentz, we've got to look at a couple things here. I think there's been arguments about the past, right? I know Bucky and Rhett, I think we're all on the same page in that we give Carson Wentz a lot of credit for what happened, and not only in 17, but the way he played over the last couple years with a lot of injuries around him. I think some people dismiss him and say Carson Wentz was never any good, but outside of a few games in 2017. I think that's silly. But we can debate that. That's debatable. We can debate about the future. Like, where do you go with the future with the Philadelphia Eagles at this position? Is it Carson Wentz? Is it Jalen Hurts? Maybe they need to go in another direction, bring in another guy. I think there's a debate there. What there's no debate about is the present. The present is not working. It's not. And you can't argue it. It just is what it is. And that can be for a whole host of issues with the offensive line issues, the lack of separation outside, some of the play calling, the system they're in. But regardless, you can't argue it's not working right now. So I am right now believe that the only reason that you would keep Carson Wentz in the lineup is to maybe protect a quarterback's confidence. But I don't think he's playing with any confidence. I don't think it can get any lower. So I don't think that's a risk. I think it is where it is. I'm going to use the rest of this season to play Jalen Hurts. You can evaluate Jalen Hurts. Maybe you end up at the end of this saying, you know what, he didn't have a chance either because of all these other issues we've been mentioning. And maybe that helps you as you go into the offseason to know, hey, this wasn't Carson Wentz's fault. And maybe Jalen Hurts gets out there and plays well, and there you go. But I think, to me, the decision it should be to let Jalen Hurts finish out this season. And, Rhett, I want to get to you on this one because I think you're probably a lot smarter than I am. Bucky, you are as well. But the sunk cost fallacy. You guys know about sunk cost fallacy because I looked up the definition of it.
Yeah.
Sunk cost fallacy describes our tendency to follow through on an endeavor if we have already invested time, effort, or money into it, whether or not the current costs outweigh the benefits.
Right.
So to me, Rhett, when I hear and it's out there, right? Look at the financial commitment you have to Carson Wentz. You have to stick with him. That money's gone. You've already spent that money. You've committed that money. Every decision should be about what gives you the best chance to win football games. That's how you should run a business, and that's how you should run a football team. So I've been a big Carson Wentz defender and a proponent over the years, but do not let the contract be the issue that keeps you from making your best decision. I don't know who that is, but I think to me that's something you have to keep in mind.
And I think you're spot on with your assessment of the past, the present, and the future as well. Clearly, the present isn't working. The only question is, like, do you really feel like it's in that at some point in the next 4 games that Carson can work his way out of this? I think if he could, we'd have seen it. We'd have seen it already in the first 11, the first 12 games for the Eagles. At this point, it doesn't feel like it's going to happen this season. Maybe it happens in the offseason. And then when you get to the sunk cost idea, if you somehow think if Jalen Hurts, proves to you something, or even if he doesn't prove enough, but it's enough to have some sort of competition, and let's say you're worried, right, that you're worried about the cost, or you're worried that Carson Wentz is not going to be amenable to some sort of competition or not being the unquestioned starter. I think you're right. I don't think it serves anybody's purposes to have this guy, no matter what you're paying him, actually back up somebody else next season. I think if that's at all a possibility, he's got to be gone, right? I just don't know that a guy like that can go from being the franchise $100 million quarterback to riding the pine because you have to eat the dead money cost. You're eating it anyway, right? So I think one way or another, we're going to find out a lot about the Eagles quarterback future in 2021 in these next 4 games.
Red, I think both you guys bring up great points because the sunk cost fallacy is something that you definitely have to consider. And I think, DJ, when we talk about this, just from a coaching standpoint, if the coach always stands in front of the room and talks about, hey, guys, the best players play, it is hard to, week after week, stand in front of the team knowing that your quarterback isn't playing well. The other thing that I will say about this for Doug Peterson and that offensive staff, I think if you just look at what the Saints have been able to do with Taysom Hill, what the Buffalo Bills have been able to do with Josh Allen, I'm not saying that Jalen Hurts is in that category. However, what I'm saying is sometimes when you have a new toy, it allows you to bring a different perspective. It forces you to play a way that might be the best way for your team to start carving out some wins. And we've talked about the Eagles' running attack and how they've been able to run the ball fairly well, but for whatever reason they haven't leaned into it. Maybe benching Carson Wentz leads them to run the football, and maybe that helps them play better because that's the way that they should have been playing the entire time.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. We could do a whole podcast on that, and we'll explore that further probably in the podcast we have the rest of the week. But it's not working there for the Philadelphia Eagles right now. All right, I'll get to the next takeaway here. The Chargers, not so special teams. All right, well, look, when you look at this Chargers team, guys, I've never seen, I left the stadium saying I've never seen a worse special teams performance, and then it turns out that that's exactly the case, because there's a stat on this where they keep it, and I think I sent it to you guys here. I'll pull it up right here. This is the Chargers entered Sunday ranked 32nd in special teams and expected points added, EPA, for the season. They got much worse. Their performance against the Patriots produced a minus 23.8 EPA, the worst in 11,026 single-game team performances since 2000, including the playoffs. In this game, they allowed a punt return for a touchdown, a blocked field goal return for a touchdown, another long punt return, another missed field goal. They had 10 players on 2 punt returns. They had 12 players on another one, which resulted in an automatic first down. I've never seen it. I've never seen that poor of a special teams performance. So that was my takeaway on the Charger side of things. And Buck, I'll add a little bonus takeaway there. The New England Patriots, with what they do defensively, they run so many games up front. They're only rushing 4 the majority of the time, 3, 4, maybe 5, but they continually get home because all they do is all these exchanges and stunts and twists, and they find a way to get home. So you're a quarterback, you're getting pressure with that 4-man rush, and now you got to comb through all these bodies in the back end. It was an impossible assignment for Justin Herbert.
Yeah, the one thing that I would say about the Patriots ultimately serve as a mirror for their opponent, meaning they show their opponent each and every week exactly who they are. And so if you have any flaws, you have anything that really sticks out, something that can be fatal to your chances of winning, where they're going to expose it. And what we saw all in that one game, all the flaws that the Chargers have, their inability to just be connected when it comes to building a game plan where everyone is complementing one another, each unit. They exposed the flaws of their special teams, which have existed the entire season. We saw their inability to, I guess, contain a physical running game. All of the things that have been problematic for the Chargers were all out there in one game. And look, I think it's unfortunate. I love Anthony Lynn, but I think this was kind of the game where you walk out of that stadium saying, yeah, we're going to have to upgrade what we have. Like, we just are not going to be able to do it at a high level the way that it's currently constructed. I just think it's difficult. But I think the Patriots do that to teams who are not sound in detail in all areas.
Well, let me ask you guys this, both, with your experiences watching NFL practices and Bucky, especially with your experience being a part of them, how much time in today's NFL do you feel like in a given practice and in meeting time that teams devote to special teams? Would you say it's
Go ahead, Buck.
25% of the time?
I feel like they devote a lot of it, a lot of time. There are always meetings. It's always a part of practice or whatever. Yeah. I would say the difference is for some teams really use it as a priority. Some teams, the coaches stand in front of the room and say, this is why we win games. Yeah. This is the biggest field flip that we can get. This is how we set our team up for points. I'm going to play my starters on special teams, and they give it a priority. I will say that every team doesn't treat it as such, and they don't make decisions on special teams as if that third unit is a starting unit on your football team.
Yeah, and I get.
Yeah, look,
go ahead, DJ.
They spend time on it every day, right?
Yeah.
I think every team spends time on it. Every team devotes resources to it. But you've got to have the right guys coaching it and teaching it, and you've got to have the right guys in the building to execute it. I mean, that's the simple part of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, that's ultimately what it comes down to. My thought is like the 10 guys on the field, the 12 guys on the, like, it just, you don't see that. You just don't see that happen. So, like, something in the week of preparation is not going right. Like, something's not going right. Now, I get it if they had an injury, but that gets corrected. There's somebody game day that's correcting that. All right,
somebody on game day on the sideline or in the booth is responsible for counting the numbers up. I mean, that's simple. That shouldn't be very complicated.
Well, and it seems like a common thread, right? And there's just something missing everywhere at every turn on every special team, one way or another, throughout this entire season, and it all comes to a head in this game. So it just feels like there's something not working in the way they prepare on special teams. It's just that's the only excuse that I can think of. So
no, but you're right. Yeah. You're right, Rhett. Yeah. All right, Buck. What's the number 9 takeaway here?
The Vikings.
Or Bucky, you got this one.
The Vikings are making a playoff push.
Bailey from 23 to walk off. Snap spot. Bailey the win. The Vikings win 27-24. Bailey walks off a winner for the first time in his kicking career with the Minnesota Vikings.
Now, I will say this, having watched this game and looked at it, if you just looked at the stats, you would be amazed because the Vikings had a 300-yard passer, a 100-yard rusher, a 100-yard receiver. You would think that they would have dominated a 1-11 Jacksonville Jaguars team. I would say that these numbers are a surprise because they didn't have their best game. But I think it is a reflection of the talent that they have. Dalvin Cook is awesome. He's one of the best running backs in football. Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the rookie class. And I think when you look at his game, he has everything. I feel like he was underrated during the process. And now that we've had a chance to see him play in the league, he is everything that you look for as a potential number one receiver, as a route runner. And Kirk Cousins, when he's allowed to play in a very comfortable fashion where the running game is allowing him to set up and throw play passes, he's as good as it gets. And this team defensively played without Eric Kendricks. They still had 4 sacks, and they turned it on when they needed it. Mike Zimmer has done a good job of keeping it together. And this is a team that is a very dangerous team to face down the stretch because they can run it. They have 2 receivers that can get open. And if Kirk Cousins is on his game in a one-game scenario, he can outduel any gunfighter.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd have to go back to 6th grade, the last time I saw a player get injured doing pregame karaoke and miss the game. Like Eric Kendrick. I mean, I feel bad. I feel horrible for him. That is just awful luck. And he's such a key part of what they've been doing on defense. And this resurgence for the Vikings, who are now a playoff team in the NFC after starting 1-5. They've won 5 of their last 6, and they are now the 7th seed in the NFC. And I mean, like, they don't have a cakewalk down the stretch here. They still have the Bucks and the Saints left to play. But the way they're playing, man, they can match up with anybody. They've got everything you need on offense, right? They've got as we've detailed with Justin Jefferson, they have a 1,000-yard rookie receiver. They have the running back in Dalvin Cook in the running game that's hard to defend. And then on defense, you just always feel like Mike Zimmer's going to have them prepared enough to make a stand against anybody. And I don't know. They may not end up in the playoffs, but the way they've turned it around, I think they'll make a case for certainly deserving it.
Yeah, I give Mike Zimmer a lot of credit for getting the issues solved on the defensive side of the ball. But I want to go back to, I think this is over the summer. Nabil was able to pull this up. Because, look, personally, I've said so many dumb things on here that I deserve rightful criticism for. And, Bucky, we get, heat for this or that. And our pinky promise is not looking so good right now with the Arizona Cardinals. We're going to set that aside. But I knew that we had gone strong on Justin Jefferson as a podcast. So Nabil, I think, has been able to pull this up. Let's go back in time. This is over the summer talking about Justin Jefferson and the Vikings. But I believe his production will eclipse Stephon Diggs, who left and went to the Buffalo Bills. I really think Justin Jefferson is kind of made to play with a guy like Kirk Cousins. When you look at the success that Kirk had in Washington and the comfort level he had there, I think you're going to see the same type of a thing. We saw him take a step forward last year with Minnesota, and I just look at the guys that he's traditionally had success with. To me, Justin Jefferson matches up. And that was co-signed by Buck. That was a selfish clip there where it's my voice, but Bucky has said all the same things and echoed them. Rhett, I know we've had conversations, so I'm letting you come alongside us here because it was just a perfect marriage. It was a perfect marriage of his skill set with Kirk Cousins. And I know early in the year, and Stephon Diggs has been great, and that trade's worked out perfect for both teams, and Buffalo's happy that they have him. But we said throughout the time, like, look, Minnesota got younger, they got cheaper, and they've got as good, if not better, production, and they have. Justin Jefferson's got 61 catches, over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's got more yards, he's got more touchdowns, he's got a better yards per catch than Stephon Diggs. I mean, he has been... to me, it looked like a phenomenal move there for the Minnesota Vikings, Buck.
So Bucky, DJ just turning the knife into his Philly faithful right now after seeing them pass up on the opportunity to take Justin Jefferson. Maybe Rager ends up being as good, but right now it's
he had a good game against the Packers. There you go. All right, what do we got here? What's the final takeaway here?
Final takeaway for the second week in a row. The Giants are still a playoff team.
3 receivers left. Wilson takes the snap. He's back to throw. He's under pressure. Flushed out to his left. Stands back there. Now he's going to moonball it down the middle of the field. High in the air. Batted down and incomplete. And the New York Giants are going to leave Seattle with a victory as they stop the Seahawks on 4th and 18 with 37 seconds to go.
Guys, Bob Papa's starting to feel it on the Giants radio broadcast. He's starting to feel these calls a little bit. I mean, I felt like for the last 2 years, it's just the depression in his voice has been audible, and now he's back. And so are the Giants. And my tagline is much more than just a punchline now, it seems, because the Giants are playing good football. And they went into Seattle with a guy at quarterback who has not won a game as a starter since 2014 in Colt McCoy, and they pull off a victory. And I think a lot of credit goes to Joe Judge, and maybe even more credit goes to defensive coordinator Pat Graham for figuring this thing out, running a defense that pressured and befuddled the once considered MVP run of Russell Wilson. Leonard Williams, 2.5 sacks. He's now got a career high, 8.5 on the season. The Giants are allowing under 17 points a game since week 9. I mean, like they are doing a great job limiting the rush. They've got 10 takeaways since week 9 on this win streak for the Giants, which is now 4 in a row. I mean, it's getting more impressive by the week here, Buck.
Look, very impressive group. And I know we made light of Joe Judge and the laps and the up downs and all the other stuff that the Giants were doing. But here's what I will say, and this is what I do believe in. I believe the way the football team plays has to be reflective of the city that is the franchise is located in. In New York, you talk about a blue-collar town, a blue-collar team, something where it has to be kind of grizzled. And when I look at the New York Giants, they play in a fashion that reflects the Giants and how you need to play in New York. They're tough, they're hardworking, they're competitive, they're big in the trenches, they control the trenches, they're doing a great job of taking care of the football, and on defense, they beat you up. And they beat you up over time. And I think that is a recipe that is long-lasting. I think you can have sustainable results that way. And even though the methods, to me, may be a little archaic, Joe Judge has a level of authenticity with his players that they're buying in. And the Giants are a force. And we saw this, and DJ and I talked about it on a Thursday night watching them against the Eagles. They play hard, and they're going to be a tough team to knock out because they believe in wearing you down over the course of a 60-minute game, and it has given them a chance to win this division.
Yeah, and I think, you know, going back and watching that video after watching the Chargers against the Patriots live yesterday, then I turn on the tape of the Giants versus the Seahawks, and it is so similar to what they do defensively with the Giants and the Patriots in terms of the games that they run up front, able to really, really execute those at a high level. Leonard Williams has had a field day on those twists all season long. You mentioned those 8.5 sacks. He's been outstanding. And then making you try and throw through a bunch of bodies down the field. And Russell Wilson never got comfortable. They were dropping guys. They were zone dropping defensive linemen to spy him. They were bringing safeties down to spy him. They just had it was a beautiful game plan that was executed very well by the Giants. And I think, look, we can kind of talk about Coach of the Year candidates and Sean Payton, what he's done, with Drew Brees being out and them continuing to roll along. You look at Matt LaFleur, the way the Green Bay Packers have played all year long. Obviously, Andy Reid is going to deserve a lot of credit. Mike Tomlin's got the only undefeated team in football. But if I'm being honest, to me, the most impressive in terms of how they look from last year to this year is what Joe Judge has done with the Giants. I know they don't have a winning record, but they're winning that division. It's a different looking football team, Buck, than the one we've seen previously.
Absolutely a different looking football team. And what I do hope this does, I hope when we have the coaching carousel, I hope it prompts more general managers and owners to look at special teams coaches. And the reason why I say this is because the special teams coach is the only guy who coaches everybody on the football team. He naturally is exposed to management skills in terms of managing the game, managing situations, managing personnel. And I'm just hoping that Joe Judge's success in terms of the way this team looks will inspire some decision makers to at least give solid consideration to special teams coaches when the carousel kicks off in a few weeks.
All right, Buck, we got a big game here with the Bills and the 49ers, which brings us to our player spotlight presented by Zaxby's. Which player are you keeping an eye on in this game?
My eyes on 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel.
Now they're going to move Deebo in motion. They flip it to him again, trying to sweep right. Turns the corner. Touchdown! San Francisco!
He is an explosive player, and he has a dimension to the offense when he returns. Not only as a playmaker in the passing game, but as a guy who is really utilized in the running game. End around, reverses. They really do a great job of putting the ball in his hands and letting him use his open field running skills, his physicality and toughness to pick up first downs. He is someone that the Buffalo Bills need to have their eye on. I'm going to have my eye on him because I think he makes that 49ers offense go.
Yeah, it's going to be a physical game. These are two physical teams. And so you went with Deebo Samuel, one of the most physical wide receivers in the NFL. I'm going to go with young Zach Moss, running back for the Buffalo Bills, as somebody who can provide that physicality for them.
Zach Moss in the backfield, the snap, play action fake, has time to throw, has time to scan the field, looks, goes to his right, fires it right side, it is caught. Caught for the touchdown. Rookie Zach Moss, touchdown Buffalo.
Last week against the Chargers, they used Josh Allen a bunch on designed quarterback runs. We saw some zone reads. We saw some quarterback draws. But in that game, he got twisted up a little bit by Joey Bosa. And I would imagine we're not going to see quite as much quarterback run from Josh Allen, which means they're going to need to rely on that backfield with Devin Singletary as well as Zach Moss. Moss provides that physicality. I think he's going to be big in this game. It's a big one between the Buffalo Bills and the San Francisco 49ers, and that's our player spotlight presented by Zaxby's. It's been a fun episode today, Buck. Any final thoughts as we keep marching on through the NFL season?
No, this is the playoff push. And so I think it's always about separating the contenders from the pretenders. And we see it each and every week. Some teams take a big leap forward and solidify themselves as one of the teams that legitimately has a shot at winning the Super Bowl.
No doubt. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this today. I want to encourage you to check out all of our content we've got out there, especially the YouTube page. Go check it out. It's youtube.com/NFL podcast. You can find all of our work. To be honest, you can also find around the NFL. I'm not encouraging you to listen to it, but it is there. I'm just letting you know it's there. But it's a really great YouTube channel there. You can check that out. Also, check out all of our videos on NFL.com. That's NFL.com/MTS video. The audio podcast, Apple Podcasts, really wherever you find podcasts, you'll be able to find the Move the Sticks pod. So thank you guys so much for hanging with us today, and we'll catch you next time right here on Move the Sticks, presented by Zaxby's.